If you agree with that, let's give Illinois Libertarians an applause. If you don't agree with that, we will convert you before the end of this weekend. I had the distinct pleasure to introduce Ken Krawchuk today, who's going to be our lunch speaker, obviously, since it is lunchtime. Let me tell you about Ken. You all have the program, you see Ken's bio, so I'm not going to bore you with a long bio, but I'm going to tell you, I met Ken in 2001 in the great state of Pennsylvania. Ken, I'm not even sure how you and I ended up bumping heads into each other and running into each other, but as the public relations guru for the Bucks County Libertarian Party, right prior to our convention, we were in desperate need of an Eastern vice chair. We had the state split up in 2 pieces. And Ken asked me if I would run and assist the Pennsylvania Party in doing that. I say that to introduce the fact that Ken and I then spent tons of time together, and Ken has decided he's going to run for governor of Pennsylvania. My favorite story about running for office in Pennsylvania comes from Ken Krawchuk. In Pennsylvania libertarian history, we ran candidates. But Ken decided it wasn't good enough just to run a candidate. We were going to run a real campaign. In 2002, this was unheard of. We weren't going to run for ballot access. We were going to run to win the state. We produced what I call real commercials. We got an advertising team to produce real commercials. We put on real radio spots, and we got invited to real debates. And Ken got to go head-to-head with the Democrats and the Republicans and the Libertarians, University of Pennsylvania, televised debates. What more did you ask for as a Libertarian to actually be taken seriously as a real candidate? And Ken was the man. I gotta say, Eddie Rendell's a great guy as a person. He's a Democrat, but he won. Mike Fisher was a great guy, an attorney general. He didn't win. Ken and Mike Fisher share the BS honor of not winning the election. Ed Rendell has won. But to run a candidate in such a serious manner, it was just amazing to see the response that Pennsylvania had towards libertarianism. And Ken just brought a whole new face to that. Ken has been active in a ton of stuff in Pennsylvania, of which I'm going to allow him to talk about today and share with you some of his dreams, visions, and goals for Pennsylvania and for libertarianism. So let me introduce Ken Krawchuk.
Who gets angry at their government? Show of hands. I must be in the right group. What do you do when you read something in the newspapers and it really gets you angry? Or you see something on the internet and it just fires up your gut? What do? You stop reading newspapers, stop reading the internet? What I'd like to do today is I'd like to tell you what I do. Because I started out as nobody. And I'd like to tell you how to go from being a lone voice in the wilderness to how to become somebody, not only in your neighborhood, but as David just pointed out, it'll grow, it'll get bigger than that. And it's very easy to do. 3 steps. Know the enemy, know your friends, and know yourself. So let me take those each one in turn. Let's start off with number 1. Know your enemy. Who is the enemy? Obviously, a lot of the people currently in government. Where are you going to learn about your enemy? You go to their lair, where they hang out. And where do they hang out? Anybody? At their meetings, their government meetings. I would echo what Jan said this morning in her presentation. Start at the local level. Go to your local meetings, your town councils, whatever it may be, your school boards. Call them up. Say, hi, when do you meet? Do you allow the public to speak? And then show up. It's as easy as that. That's how it begins. Because just showing up, as Mark Twain says, that's 90% of all activity. Because when you show up, you'll notice several things. One of the first things you'll notice is that they're going to do something blatantly unconstitutional. You'll be there to see it. And then when you read about it in the newspaper the next day, you're going to say, that's not how it happened. You're going to know things weeks, months in advance. And you're going to know the story behind it. Right off the bat, you're going to be more adequately armed to fight them. You'll also find out other things. You'll find out that you stand out. Because nobody goes to their local meetings. I'm from Abington Township, which is in outside of Philadelphia, suburban Philadelphia, southeastern Pennsylvania. We have seats for about 50, 60 people in our meeting room. If there are 10 people there, that's a lot. So when you walk in and sit down, they're going to say, there's somebody new here. They're going to come over and say hello. They're going to say, why are you here? Before you know it, they might ask you to serve on a volunteer board. They may ask you to champion one of their particular issues that for some reason they can't come out in the public and speak about it. Or, in extreme circumstances, they may even ask you to run for public office. All of this happened to me when I first started going to our Abington Township meetings. And it grew from there, one thing after the other. Pretty soon, I found myself part of the in crowd. I knew them by name. They knew me by name. I would get up and I would pick on them whenever they did something unconstitutional. For example, they eliminated the public speaking portion of the meeting. When they got up there to do the Pledge of Allegiance, I said, excuse me, I'd like to speak to the Pledge of Allegiance. You took away the public speaking. This is what the flag stands for. I would like to speak to this. And we got that turned around. As I said, you'll find something blatantly unconstitutional. Now, on the home front, your parents, your children, your friends, they scratch their head. What are you doing, Ken? What are you, crazy? This is self-government. You have to pay attention to it yourself. As Robert Heinlein, the author, said, government is like driving a car in downtown traffic. You have to personally pay attention to, because if somebody drives you into the ditch, takes control of your car, they didn't do it. You did it because you chose to sit in the back seat and snooze. Number one, know your enemy. Now, you may find out that they're not really your enemy. When I joined into politics, I expected slash tires, threatening phone calls, things like that. But I found that most politicians are actually very caring people. They care very deeply about what happens in their community. They're dead wrong about the solution, but it's good to know their hearts were in the right place. For example, when I ran my first race, 1994, I got an anonymous phone call. They're saying, your opponent is over at the McKinley Civic Association picnic. You should be there too. Who is this? That's not important. What's important is that you get over there right now. This is the sort of thing I found. So my enemy, I can think of them more as friends that I don't have. So you know your enemy. Next step, know your friends. When you start going to your local meeting, you will make new friends, guaranteed. Because there are people there who will just naturally gravitate toward you. When you get up there and complain about taking away the freedom of speech of township residents, other people come up and say, that's a great idea. Thanks for doing that. So you'll find friends, members of the audience, other politicians, reporters, one after the other. Let me tell you one interesting one. They did a secret deer hunt in Abington Township. They closed off one of the forests, surrounded with cops, went in there and started popping up deer. We have a tremendous deer problem in southeastern Pennsylvania. They're eating up everything. Excuse me. Well, I got up and I said, who authorized it? When was it authorized? What was the process you did it? I didn't hear anything about this. Bam, bam, bam. This meeting's adjourned. Out from under me. They never answered. After the meeting, a guy came up to me, wearing a beret, and said, excuse me, my name is Maurice. I'm from the People for I'm with the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. I heard your remarks. I want to help. What a friend. Now, tonight, I'm having steak. I'm not one of these guys. But they say that politics makes for strange bedfellows, and it doesn't get much stranger than this. Maurice and I work together. We have copies of the minutes, copies of the meetings, even though our goals were completely different. I'm a big fan of right to keep and bear arms, and hunting was fine by me. He was against shooting a deer. I was against the secrecy. Well, it took us about a month or two, and guess what? We ended the secrecy, but not the deer hunts. So by partnering with somebody who I would never think of partnering with, I was able to achieve a libertarian goal. So the friends that you run into in the audience are not necessarily the people that you would seek out. Know your friends. And by far, to quote Dan from his presentation earlier today, the best friend you'll ever get is the media. Because they've got the megaphone. They can reach thousands of people, millions of people. Cultivate the media. There are several ways you can do it. The worst way is to run a commercial. It costs money, it's targeted, and show of hands, how many people watch the commercials? How many people read the commercials in the newspaper? How many watch the banner ads? All right, thank you. Needs of democracy even better. You don't do that. What you need to do is get free media. And in this day of the internet, there's a lot of ways to do free media. Blog. How many bloggers out there? Good way to do it. Letters to the editor. How many? They are the two good ways to do it because they're free. And the people who are paying attention, they read the blogs. They read the letters to the editor. So there's a bad way to do it, which is to pay for it. A good way to do it, which is free media. But there's my favorite way. And that is to go out and make your own news. How many newsmakers we got out there? Oh, come on! How do you expect to take back our country? Now, I'm not talking about robbing a bank. Make the news that way. I'm talking about doing something bigger than that. Staging a rally, whatever it may be. Let me give you something. This is unfolding news. Earlier this year, I was sitting in the back of our township meeting, and they voted 8-7 to take away an 80-year-old lady's property using eminent domain. Who can hand you a better issue than that? Beating up on little old ladies with the power of government? Well, what we did is we started the wheels turning. We put together a rally. We just held it last weekend. And it wasn't just us. As I said, you find your friends. There's a group called the Abington Citizens Network, and they're a good government group, transparency. They said, everybody should know about this. They dump it out on their network. We contact the Ron Paul meetups. They split it out that way. Campaign for Liberty gets a hold of it. They go out. They get it out that way too. Next thing you know, there's one group after another, after another, after another. Our rally, we visited the homes of all 8 commissioners who voted to steal this old lady's property on a beautiful Saturday morning with signs. I could count on one hand how many libertarians were there. There were, my count, 50 people showing up at the main rally. We started at 10 a.m., we went till 6 p.m., house after house, signs, megaphones. We sent out news releases. They got picked up. The next thing you know, KYW News Radio, the largest radio outlet in the Philadelphia market, is covering it. We're the 3rd story behind the Phillies, the Nor'easter that was bearing down on the town, on the city, and then us. And they had quotes from me and the township manager, back and forth. Well, we think we should take it for public use. They're stealing an old lady's property! People come charging in. All of a sudden, I'm getting emails from people. Ken, I heard you on the radio, I heard you on the radio. More people are coming in. This is the ultimate friend story. One of the guys there, I've never met him before. He's got our flyer. Oh, I left it up in the hotel room. I've got flyers. We hand it out. He says, Ken, every registered voter should know about this. I said, oh, come on, man. There are 2,000 people in every ward who did that. It multiplies out to about $2,000. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out his checkbook. $2,000. He wrote a check on the spot. In 3 days, all the homes in those wards, and every single registered voter, are going to be getting a bigger version of that flyer. We are fighting the eminent domain. See where you find friends? Just by showing up. You know your friends. You know your enemy. And you make it happen. That's 2 out of 3. Your friends and your enemy. But we know that your enemy are really just friends that don't know it yet. And your friends can be turned into an enemy, such as if you misuse your media contacts. Remember, they have deadlines. Don't bore them with things. But the most important thing is that you know yourself. Because you will find yourself doing things you've never done before. Things like organizing a rally, giving speeches, talking to the media. Hi, Ken, this is Brad Siegel from KWB News Radio. Would you like to do an interview? Dude, I'm there. But these are not the sort of things that they teach you in a regular government school. How to organize a rally, cut me a break, what are the legal aspects? So many things that they never tell you. Where do you learn this? Anybody idea? Toastmasters. How many are familiar with Toastmasters? Very good. How many are members? For those of you who aren't aware, Toastmasters is an international organization, over 250,000 members. The mission of Toastmasters is to provide a supportive environment to learn public speaking and leadership skills. I've been a Toastmaster for, I guess, around 4,197 days now. That's about 11 and a half years. And when I started, I was the guy who sat in the back corner of the room. I used to have asthma attacks if I tried to talk to my congressman. But over the years, I learned to speak. I learned to communicate. I learned to put across libertarian ideas. To the point where here I am, standing here spending a fine afternoon with all you fine people. Toastmasters gave me my wings. Public speaking is one thing, but there's something else I learned at Toastmasters that I did not expect, and that was leadership skills. I learned diplomacy. I learned how to evaluate someone else's speeches. I learned how to run a meeting. I learned how to run a rally. I'll give you another short story. We banded together with other third parties to protest ballot access requirements in Pennsylvania. We needed 67,000 signatures to get on the ballot. All the third parties got together and said, we got to do something. So we have a big rally in Harrisburg in the Capitol Rotunda. We walk in the door, and there, setting up their camera, is the Pennsylvania Cable Network. 3 million homes. I go over to the cameraman and I say, excuse me, but what's the agenda here? He says, oh, whatever you guys want to do. This is going out live to the state. How long? As long as you want. I go over to the other third-party guys and I said, who's leading the show? Oh, I don't know. I'm a Toastmaster. I know how to do this. So I go over to one candidate. You're a Green Party candidate. What's your name? What are you running for? Okay, you're not going to be on the ballot. You're with the Constitution Party. What's your name? What's your running for? Okay. And then I got all their names. Then I went around. You're going to have 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3. Sir, do you have a watch? No, you don't have a watch. Who has a watch? You have a watch? Good. When they start going over 3 minutes, I want you to stand up and hold up this red flag. He's going to do that. Watch it. And you just set it all up, just like a Toastmasters meeting. At the appointed hour, exactly 5 minutes after 12, I cued the cameraman. Live from Harrisburg, it's Tuesday afternoon. We ran a 1-hour talk show with candidates for public office, bringing in one after the other. Who knows how to do that? Where do you learn that? Toastmasters. There's a club. There are clubs all over the world. I guarantee there's got to be one within 10 or 15 miles of where we're standing right now. Once or twice a month, positive feedback. The kind of feedback you get, it's not things like, oh, Sharon, that speech sucked. You're not going to hear that. You're going to say, Sharon, that was a very effective speech, but it would have been more effective if you hadn't fainted. If I'm any judge of the results of Toastmasters, I went from being that guy in the corner to being the guy up front. We libertarians, we have the best message on the planet. Freedom, liberty, your life, your way. But if you can't communicate it, that message is useless. Know yourself. Know your friends. Know your enemy. One last piece of warning. Watch out. You have to set goals for yourself because the enemy is big. It's not just your town council stealing little old lady's property. It's your county raising the taxes. It's the state. And I won't talk about your last governor. It's the nation. It's the United Nations. It's like connecting a tank of oxygen to vacuum. If you're not careful, it'll take over your life. I found that out in my first race. Set goals. Verbalize them. Here's what I want. With us, family, job, and then politics. In that order. Doesn't do any good to stop the tax increase if you lose your job over it. Doesn't do you any good to win any particular issue, stop an old lady's house from getting stolen if you wind up getting divorced. I've seen too many libertarian-inspired divorces. I'm telling you. One guy says, hey, I don't have to pay taxes. And his wife is like, is that so? Next thing you know, they're separated. Know what you want to have. Set limits. Because otherwise, your enemy and your friends will take up all your time. So there's my advice to you, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow freedom fighters. Know the enemy, who could be your friend. Know your friends, who could be your enemy. Know the person who could be your worst enemy, and that's yourself. How do you get involved? Get up and do something. Ben Franklin once said that. Somebody says, Ben, how do I change things? He said, people are always saying, somebody should do something about that. Well, do something, and you will become somebody. I'll leave you with the mantra of the grassroots activist. Easy to remember. 10 words, 2 letters apiece. If it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to us. My fellow freedom fighters, I leave it to you.
Do I have time for Q&A? Sure. Does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask Ken?
Oh, come on, I couldn't explain it all. Yes, ma'am.
Is the old lady keeping her house?
Well, so far, she is. As I mentioned, it's an 8-7 vote, and they're nervous. They're very nervous. One of the commissioners came up to me after the last meeting, and he goes, if you pick in front of my house, I'm going to hold you responsible. Well, good, but what does that mean? It means I'm going to hold you responsible. What are you going to do, shoot me? I'm going to hold you responsible. You're going to have the cops stop me? And he just, another commissioner pulled him off. Mike, who is it? No. They're rattled. And now we're sending out this mailer to 7,800 people, registered voters in Abington Township. We'll see. I see the handwriting on the wall. They took a vote at the last meeting, came out of the blue. One guy says, I want to hire a $200 an hour building inspector to go look at that building. The one that they're seizing. They're going to use it for a library, even though the main township library is a mile away. Why? I don't know. Yeah, isn't that outrageous? And there's other stuff too. MonticoLP.org has the whole story. But I'm thinking his building inspector is going to come back and say, nah, this is no good for a library. And they're going to say, all right, we're not going to take it. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. They're going to try and save face. It's all going on. When we were at each one of their houses, we had a megaphone. We'll be back next month. We were there last weekend. Next month, we're doing the same thing again. And they're going to say it. We'll be back next month. And we're not going to rest until they change their vote. Because their vote, we tell them, is like a baby's dirty diaper. It needs to be changed, and for the same reason. These sound bites that are going out on Philadelphia's largest radio station. And it all started with me sitting in the back corner of my local township meeting. Each one of you can do it. How many of you have been to your local township meetings? Ah, that's good. You make me feel better. How many of you get up and speak? Yeah. How many of you Toastmasters communicate effectively? There you go. That was fun. He's a competent Toastmaster.
Any other questions?
So tell us about rallies. I mean, this business of Toastmasters teaching you how to do a rally is like, wait a minute, where does that come in?
Well, Toastmasters, you learn how to organize a meeting. A rally is the meeting that's outside. So you need a Toastmaster, somebody who's in charge. You need a timer, somebody to keep you on top of things. You need a public relations person, somebody to put out a press release. And you know the easy thing, who, what, where, when, why, how. I just went out on the web. I typed in TV stations, and I got NBC, ABC, the local affiliates. And they all have a little click. Click here for news. You're a news watcher. Okay, I send in my news watcher. I make my little press release and I send it out. You same thing, newspapers, radio stations, the whole 9 yards. It took me, I don't know, an hour to put together a press release, an hour to send it out to 15, 20 people. And that's it. And then when they show up, well, you have somebody who's in charge. You make sure you have signs. You put signs together a couple days in advance. Meetups are a wonderful thing. We had a Ron Paul group say, hey, you need signs. We're going to do the signs for you. So they staged the signs, one of our friends. Then you've been to rallies. You know what it is. And you need a handout, like I was going to give to you people. I'll bring it on later on today. I'll pass it out later on. Tonight at dinner, I'll pass them out. You can see what we're handing out. You got to have something to hand out. That way people can take it home and say, yeah, I'm angry. Little old lady, 8 years old, they're taking away her property. But you learn. And the skills are transferable all over the place. You learn how to throw a conference. Who threw this conference, by the way? It's a very, very well done job. Who did it?
Many people.
Many people. Round of applause for as many people. Questions?
Last question.
I have a question for you. Who's going to go to their next township meeting or school board meeting? Oh, come on, guys. This is self-government, remember. That means you do it yourself. If it is to be, it is up to whom? Me. Listen, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your commitment to liberty. And thank you for inviting my wife and I out here. This is my first time in the St. Louis metropolitan area. We'll be riding up to the top of the arch tomorrow. I thank you very much.